So let's jump into the content. And the topic again this week is group choice. And so the first question posed was from Keith: how to handle phone calls when you're on the road or with a client. So let's start with that question. Does anybody have any thoughts on that, or anything that you guys do? How do you handle a phone call when you're on the road or with a client?
Well, phone calls on the road, it's not something, I make sure people understand, usually they hear when you're in your car, said, oh, hey, I'm just giving you a call. I'm heading to an appointment. So you've set the parameter for them. So they don't think you're sitting in your office, so they're not going to ask you for documents, but usually that's my check-in time with somebody. If I'm following up, like, hey, are we set for the showing? Are we set for our appointment? Or it's just the follow-ups. Like, I usually have a list of follow-up calls I'm making, and it's just touch bases for me in the car. Because if they ask me questions on certain things, again, I'm being safe. I don't want to be trying to look at things and try and pull something up on my phone. If somebody wants to see something, I'll say, hey, well, when I get a chance where I can pull over, I'll call you right back for that. So I think that's kind of the important part of it. But I just don't want to get caught off guard.
Yeah, and I kind of made a joke of it that, like, what, Keith, you don't know all 2,000 plus homes on the MLS. So uh, part of being a good realtor is just, I think, being honest with folks. And so if you're on the road, it's perfectly acceptable to say, hey, for safety's sake, I am on the road, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. One thing some people have done that I've started receiving is automatic text when I either call or text, and it says, I'm sorry, I'm driving right now, I'll call you, um, as long as you actually call me back. But if you're answering the phone on the road, odds are, to Casey's point, you're not going to have the information pulled up, and you're not going to want to pull over to the side of the road because maybe you're going to an appointment. um, but I like to just say, like, hey, okay, I appreciate the call. I am on the road, and I will call you right back as soon as I get to where I'm going, because I want to make sure I'm taking good care of you. Now, the other part of the question was with a client. So if I'm with a client, I do not answer the phone at all. I immediately mute the phone. I don't respond to it because I want to give my client that I'm physically with 100% of my attention. That is what you owe that person. And at the end of the transaction, they're going to remember when they're going to fill out your evaluation or your request for a review. They're going to remember the fact that you gave them 100% of your focus and attention at all times. That's imperative, guys, and that goes for every aspect of your life. When you're with family, as much as possible, if you're at an important event like a son's graduation or whatever, if you answer your phone, don't be that a-hole. Be present with your family. It's okay to have life, okay? That being said, answer the phone as much as you possibly can. So if you're sitting at the office and you see a phone call come through, Katie caught a glimpse of this last week. A guy called that I don't typically, love talking to all the time, but she's like, you should answer that phone, right? And I answered the phone, and he ended up with a referral for me. And it's one of those things that you just gotta do. You gotta bite the bullet, even if there's a person you don't get energy from talking to. Maybe they have business for you, and the only reason he's got business for me is because I helped him and his wife buy and sell a home, and they had a good experience, so they're referring me out. That's a great problem to have. When in doubt, answer the phone. If you're not available to speak, then be unavailable to speak. It's okay. And then when you do call the person back, say, hey, I'm so sorry, I was in a showing, I just called you back as soon as I possibly could. How can I help you? And if you can do that from a place where you have access to the MLS, or at least your phone where you can maybe pull something up for them if they're looking, then that's great. But if you don't, then be honest with them. Don't lie and don't try and fudge anything. Just say, hey, you know what? I don't know, but as soon as I get home, I'm gonna look that up and I'll let you know. I'll reach right back out to you. I do that a lot, honestly. It's hey, can you check into this house for me? Well, I'm not at home right now, but as soon as I get to my office, you'll be the first. You'll be my first contact. Um, the next question from Keith was also, when away from the desk and they are asking about properties you are not familiar with, how do you approach that? If I'm away from my desk, I simply say what I just stated, and that is, I'm not so sure. I know a little bit about that area, but I would love to get you some precise answers. So until I know 100%, I'm not gonna feed you a line of crap. I'm gonna give you an honest answer as soon as I can get to a place where I can sit down and look. Does that sound fair, Keith? You're muted, so if you're answering, well, hey, maybe you're unavailable to talk right now because you're driving. So just ignore me. You must be linked up with your truck or something, because can anybody hear him?
Nope.
Okay. Well, the next question, and Keith, chime in whenever you get that figured out. The next question, does that help you guys? Do you guys have any follow-up questions about that? Moral of the story, guys, is just always be truthful. Be transparent. People don't want you hiding anything from them. They don't want you trying to be Superman if you can't be Superman. Just be you. Get them the answers as soon as you can, and that will be good enough. That will bring and promote repeat business. Promise you. Dana, I'm not sure if she's available to hear this right now, but she asked for more information on codes, inspections, appraisals, how to best guide our clients prepping to list.
That's good.
So let's start with how to best prep our clients when ready to list. That would typically come in a listing appointment. In my world, a listing appointment is not typically where I establish price, which is what we get all worked up about. Like, oh my gosh, how am I going to price their house? A listing appointment for me is informational, where I'm going to provide a ton of value to the seller by leading them through and just teaching them. I think education is one of the reasons that people use realtors. It's not just about the net to seller, like what they're going to make at the end of the day by using a realtor. It's how much information, knowledge they can gain. And so educating your clients is super important from the get-go. So a listing appointment is where this would occur for me. And everyone does it a little bit differently. I've heard of two-pronged listing appointments where you go the first time to preview the house and just get to know them a little bit, and then you go another time to actually price it out, and you meet and establish like timelines and all that stuff. I prefer to be really efficient with my time, and so one meeting is ample for me to walk through the house and to also guide them. So the way I typically do a listing appointment, and we're going to get into this a lot more seriously next week when we do a mock listing appointment. So I'm just going to do a 101 today, and next week will be 301, where we actually do like some back and forth. So I walk the property to start, and then we sit down at the kitchen table and we just talk. I typically take them through the timeline of a typical transaction. We start with, hey, this is, odds are once we list, it's going to be closed in 30 to 45 days. So from today, if we're planning on listing next week, we can look at about a month and a half, and this whole process will be done. My goal throughout this process is to make it as seamless and stressless as possible for you guys. So here's the education. This is what it looks like. Step one, we get your house active and listed. Step 2, we go into contract. We get a buyer, we go into contract. Again, this is the 101 version. Step 3, the buyer schedules an inspection. And this might be beneficial, like Michael, for you. You've never been through a transaction. This might be good information for you. So hopefully we're writing this stuff down. So if step 3 is the inspection, step 4 is the remedy request. This is likely the most stressful portion of the entire transaction for both sides, because it's telling the seller that your house isn't perfect, and the buyer is concerned that they're not going to get everything fixed and they might not be moving into as safe a house as they originally thought. Once you get through that process, then it's on to appraisal. Here's what appraisal looks like. You talk to them about what appraisal looks like. Again, this is 101. I'm not going to go into what appraisal looks like this week. We'll go into that next week. And then lastly, we wait for closing. Within that closing week, there's several different things that we'll coordinate, and there will be several back and forths with the title company and the lender to make sure that everything is jiving and ready to rock. We will also have a final walkthrough in the final week. The final walkthrough typically takes 20, 30 minutes and happens 2 days prior to closing in a normal world. Could be changed slightly. And then we close. We're going to go to the signing table, and it's going to take us about 30 minutes if we're the seller to sign all the documents. It's between 40 and 50 signatures typically. So stretch your hand out, because we're going to get this bastard sold.
Love it.
So that's explaining the transaction. Now, one of the things Dana did ask for was talking about codes, inspections, and appraisals. Dana, are you free yet?
Yes. For the moment, I'm waiting on somebody else.
What were you referencing when you mentioned codes exactly?
So when we're talking about FHA loans, there are certain things that have to be adhered to in terms of appraisal and inspections, and they follow certain codes, like the no chipped or peeling paint type of things.
Yeah, cool. Okay, I was just making sure that was where you're going. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's shift gears. So we just talked about how to best guide our clients prepping to list. One of the things, and I just took them through the transaction process. One of the things that it's dawning on me as I say it out loud again is, what about prepping them to list their home? Like, what about walking through their home? From a realtor's perspective, that first time, what do you tell somebody about their own house? It could be the very first time you're meeting this person, so that they can get maximum top dollar out of their home when they do go to list. Maybe that was what you were talking about, but that's a great topic as well. And this is where you have to be blunt in the nicest way possible. And it really is, it's personal preference. My experience as a store manager with Walmart, getting ready for corporate visits, prepared me really well for getting somebody's house ready, because it's all about cleaning up the corners and making sure it's not cluttered, and making sure that the place is ready to sell, just like a feature that you would build on an end cap would be. But for some of you, you've never had that experience. Michael, I'm sure that you could be pretty well versed at that, having worked in retail as well. Like, you want to make a house look like a side counter. You want to make it look clean, crisp, ready to rock. You don't want a hole in the wall, right? You wouldn't want to show somebody a dirty floor. So you're going to encourage your seller, hey, let's create a list. I normally just do that on my phone, guys. I normally create a note in my notes app. It's just this, well, you guys all have, most of you have iPhones. The app that says notes. I start off with the address and then the person's name right before I even go in. So out on the curbside, I start a note, and then while I'm in the house, I tell the person right up front, I say, hey, I'm not going to be texting anybody. What I'm going to be doing is taking notes on my phone of the things that might be opportunities that we would want to resolve before going to list. The reason being, the reason I'm going to give you this advice is so that we can get you top dollar and show your house in its best light. When you tell somebody that, they're going to be like, oh, okay, cool. And the other reason I'm doing this digitally instead of on a piece of paper is so that I can immediately, when we're done, send you an emailed version of this. So you have an active checklist that you can be working from. Everyone, I've never had anyone say, well, can you write this down on paper for me? No, nobody wants paper. It's just another thing that's going to get lost. So as far as getting your prep people ready to list, where do you think we start? You pull up on the curb. Where do you think your walk starts?
Curb appeal.
Curb appeal.
Amen, sisters. Curb appeal. Super duper important. It's the first impression. You guys have all heard the term, you only get one chance to make a first impression. It's absolutely true. I have pulled up to houses before with buyers, looked at it, looked at the area, been like, let's just keep driving. If the house looks like a turd on the outside, guess what? Guess what? The inside's probably gonna look like a turd. If it looks like a turd and smells like a turd. So start with the curb appeal. Is the landscaping okay? Is the exterior of the home in need of a power wash? Is there mildew? So mildew is super common and it's a super easy fix. It's a cheap fix. Just pull the trigger and say, hey, you need to fix this. I've actually paid for a power washer to come out before for a client of mine. I don't recommend it. If you can get the client to pay for it, then they should pay for that. That's their home that they're getting ready to list, and you've not made a dime yet. So you do you. Is the trim okay? Is it chipping to Dana's point? Because in FHA loans, we know that if the trim is chipping, that FHA, that loan type, they won't lend until that chipping paint has been fixed, scraped and painted. That can be costly. So you might as well diagnose it on the front end instead of being quote unquote blindsided by something you should have already seen. Additionally, if you're going to list a house and it does have chipping paint that they don't want to do anything with, when you go to list it, make sure you notate, no FHA loans will be considered. Only conventional or cash.
Is there somewhere we can find a list of these FHA requirements?
Yeah, you probably can. I'm going to go through the most common ones here in a second.
Okay.
So after you hit the curb, like, don't be afraid to walk around the sides and the back of the home, because anyone who's going to buy the home is going to walk around the sides and going to walk around the back. So if you see some weeding that needs to happen, Katie listed her first home, and in the backyard there was some definite weeding that needed to happen. It would only take them 15-20 minutes to do it, but it would change the feel of their backyard. And our goal is to have that eye. We've got to have that eye. And if any of you are uncomfortable with what good looks like, then either start watching HGTV more or call me. I'm happy to walk a home with you, and we can just walk my house. You can critique all my weeds. Cool. So once you've walked the outside, then you get in the inside. Start at the front door. Literally walk through the home as a buyer would walk through the home. That's super critical. Oh, Dana's back on here. Walk through the front door and just take a look, and also don't be afraid to take a smell. I hate to say this, but one of the first homes I listed, it smelled like a dog took a shower in the house, right? It was awful. It's like that musty, nappy, crappy smell, right? Well, I had to be completely honest with the people. I actually asked them, because I knew that they wouldn't smell it because it's their house and they just get used to it. I was like, you smell like a pet odor in here? And of course they didn't. And so it had to be me like saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. I need you to vacuum. I need you to carpet clean. We're going to light every candle that you have. I'm going to bring candles. We're going to put air fresheners in here. And before the open house, I'm baking cookies. So we're doing everything possible. And unfortunately, we still had a dog smell, but we did get the place sold. And that's all that matters. But smell, sight, and then like touch. So if you're seeing textures that aren't appealing, if you're If you're seeing walls that have issues with them, like you need to notate those things and just call them out, because when you come to value their house, you're gonna be able to remind them like, hey, if you're not gonna fix the drywall that clearly needs fixed, then we're not gonna get top dollar, and here's what we can expect to get. So you're gonna be inspiring them to fix those little loose ends. We're always hopeful that the loose ends are not a lot, that there's small, little, tiny tasks to do, or maybe you get lucky and the home is completely ready to rock. But in most circumstances, you might need to paint a wall here or there. Oh my God, no. Sorry. You might need to paint a wall. You might have to hire a carpet cleaner professional to do some stuff. Or you might just brace the person that says, hey, I don't want to replace my carpet when it's 30 years old and has, trample stains on it. You say, okay, well, let's expect then, just planting the seed. I want to under promise and over deliver. Expect to give the buyer a carpet credit or a carpet allowance, maybe $1,000 at closing. That's one way around fixing things. But look at things through the lens of, would I want to live here? And if not, why not? What's wrong with this room? What's wrong with the floor? What's wrong with the ceiling stain that you see? What's wrong with the appliances from 1982, right? Like those could be opportunities that get in the way of selling the home. Keep that list though for your own reference as well. If you're going to write it on paper and be old school, then don't give your only list that you have for reference to the seller, because you need to retrace your steps and you need to have an opportunity to follow up with these folks. As far as FHA codes, so FHA and VA, USDA sometimes, I've not dealt with any USDA, I'm not gonna lie. Their requirements to close loans are unique in that they require additional steps to make sure the property is safe. And so with FHA, the appraisal process is different. With like a traditional conventional loan or just conventional loan, the appraiser is only there to value. They're not there to inspect condition necessarily. With an FHA loan, it's almost like another inspection, where they're going to go in and they're going to make sure that all handrails are present. So one of the biggest things that people get stuck on are handrails missing. Dawn, you're dealing with that now.
Yes, sir.
So they're looking at safety items. The other big thing that they always get you on is chipping or peeling paint. Reason being, in most homes that have chipping or peeling paint, they were built before 1979, and so odds are they may contain lead. And so FHA loan structure, they want to make sure that that you're taking care of the health component of the paint. So those are the two biggest ones. Foundation is a big one. I'm trying to think of other things. Dawn, was there anything on yours that's holding yours up that was specifically cited that due to FHA, there's this requirement?
For everything you stated on top of a furnace issue. And it was just old rusted piping.
Now, fortunately, most of the time, these FHA, the walk is not going to be super invasive, meaning they're not going to look too deep into these problems. They just want to see that on the surface level, the house looks safe.
So then, Josh, when it comes to re-inspection, like is what I'll be dealing with, how intense is that look? Like for a re-inspection of an FHA? Sometimes,
if the problem is minor. So I had a home in Mechanicsburg where the deck was like, so the wood beams were so old that they were starting to like curl up.
Yeah.
And some of the spindles were missing, so the structure wasn't all that good. So we were able to fix that and take a photo of it and send it in, and they were able to approve it visually that way. Okay. Unfortunately, things like the foundation and things like peeling paint, they typically have to come out and re-inspect. The re-inspection is typically a little bit more lenient, meaning if they see you made the effort to do something about it and you think you fixed it, and you fix most of it, then odds are you'll probably pass that re-inspection.
Okay, good.
As far as if there's a list, I'm sure that there is a list of FHA requirements. I just don't have that.
Josh, I just
But
sent it to
really,
you guys from NerdWallet.
you can
I
take,
just
yeah, you can take just your own account of the house as you're walking it and just look at safety things just as you would. And odds are those will be on it. So Casey just sent something. Let's see what it says. NerdWallet. Cool. Nice. So check this out. Oh, I don't know if it's on here, but like windows that have been painted shut, that's a big one. Making sure that your egresses work okay. Your doors, do they get jammed, or are they sticky doors? Like, you'd have to fix those things typically. All right. I believe that was the only questions that we had entered.
So
What
Josh,
other-
can I ask
Yeah.
a quick question? Would you, I think I heard you say it earlier, something like it. Do you ever, you could say like, we are not going to do FHA loans on this house? Cause like learning from the experience I'm in right now, I don't know that I would have picked an FHA loan for a house that was built in 1913. When we had 5 additional offers. I'm just, and I mean, you and I talked about it. We picked the best loan, but this has kind of been a nightmare. So do you ever just say, you know what, I don't think we pick an FHA loan, or we don't accept
Yeah.
FHA loans?
I have a listing right now I can't sell because it's got a stain on it, so to speak. So when a home goes into contract once and then comes back to the market for any reason, people
Yes.
automatically think there's something wrong with it.
Yes.
And so that's what I call a stain, right? So there's a stain on its record. Well, this home in Franklinton, there's really nothing wrong with it, but there was an FHA style loan. It was a nightmare to deal with. So when we went back active, I said, no FHA, we're not doing it.
Okay.
And those older homes, honestly, you'd be wise to do so unless it's been renovated recently and you know that it's safe. The biggest expense, honestly, is going to be foundations or painting, like the exterior. So walk it, and from your naked eye, if you can see that it's in really great shape, then go ahead and accept FHA if you'd like to. But if you ever have the opportunity to choose between an FHA loan and a similar conventional loan, always go conventional.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to save you a burden.
Yes. Well, I'm learning a lot. That's good.
Yeah, and I know we've had conversation before in the coaching classes about that. So it's one of those things you kind of have to go through once to really respect and understand the why behind it. Like, yeah, that $5,000 extra might look great on paper, but is it worth the $5,000 or $10,000 in stress and extra work in the future?
Right.
It's one of those tit for tat type things.
Yeah, and until you walk it through, I mean, everyone learns different, but yeah, it's like, I love having you 5 times because it'll take 5 times to walk through 5 different scenarios to actually get it all. So it's cool. It's a good learning experience.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's all of the questions that you all proposed, but what else is on your mind? Like, Michael, you're brand new to this thing still. What's on your mind? Anything goes here.
I was wondering if there's a place where I could get like a flow chart, kind of like a paperwork flow chart for just any situation where you just go down the line and see what you have to give someone at what stage of the transaction.
We have transaction checklists, and I can send you some of those, and it gives a kind of a breakdown of in order of what happens in a transaction, so that you can use that as reference too. I used to take those to the listing appointments that I would have and just literally walk through them and say, hey, here's what you can expect first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And I'm at the point now where I've kind of memorized them. Once you go through a few transactions, you'll start to get a feel for exactly the flow of those things. But yeah, to your point, I will try to, I need to take a note. I will share those with you.
Okay, thank you.
And Josh, I think I texted you, and we probably don't have time to deal with this today, but I think it would be so beneficial to go through. I have one of those checklists, I think, that you're talking about, but to go through every single form that is required from the listing appointment to the close. Kind of like when you and I were talking, I had no idea what a DA is. I just looking at that cheat sheet, or what a green sheet is, which I know is now changing to command, but just to go through, hey, you need this signed at listing, you need this signed, it would just be beneficial to go through the list of forms.
Did you receive my email about this next month's training calendar?
I did, but I was at their house, and honestly, I didn't read it.
It's okay. So the second week of September, I'm going to be covering all of what you just said, essentially.
Yay! Okay, great.
So I listen to y'all every now and then. I listen to y'all.
Awesome.
Hey Josh, here's one for you. Is that so? I'm looking for comparables for this condo that we're looking at. In condos, like if it's in a building itself, do you just use that that comparative one that's there, the kind of the simple, I guess it's the best way to describe it, under the consolidated one, if it's, because that would be pulling usually from just the building, because it's showing on this one, it shows just in the building. Is that the one you would pull from more, or would you go towards the sold that were?
If you're pulling comps for a person?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm looking for this guy right now, and luckily the consolidated one shows it's all the ones that were in that building or were in that condo complex. So it's a pretty good comparative. But normally you're pulling from a full. Oh, there you go.
All right. No, I try to only pull closed units because I try to be an appraiser. So when I'm trying to pull comps, I take it from an appraiser's standpoint, because an appraiser will not accept in contract homes as viable comps because they haven't closed. They will only accept closed comps. Now, if there's not enough comps in an area, then they may be forced to do that, but that's on a very rare occasion. They will only ever use closed. So this is going to be a two-part answer. And Dawn, this comes from one of the questions you asked me earlier in the week, and that is, if you're going to get, how can you find typical days on market?
Yes.
So I'm going to answer both questions at the same time. So give me a neighborhood. Somebody give me a neighborhood.
Meadows of Cheshire.
What is it?
Meadows of Cheshire.
At or of?
At, I believe. No, Mac. Yeah. They call it Mac. It's Mac. Meadows at Cheshire.
Why isn't this working? Crap.
I tried that too.
All right. Well, here's what I'll do instead. I'm going to take this, and the same goes for your condo, Casey. I'm just going to zoom in on an area here. So let's just say Meadows at Cheshire is the same. It's a neighborhood.
Yep.
I'm gonna go for Gramercy Park Estates here. Let's say that the condo you're referencing, Casey, is in Gramercy Park Estates. There are 5 homes currently either active or in contract. Let's go to the list here. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly so we can get through it. All 5 of which are contingent. Here's the price range that they're in. Okay, so they all run from 225 all the way up to 319 to the outlier. So the main range there is up to about 260. And to your point, Dawn, the days on hand for the homes that haven't sold yet, you go over here, 6, 2, 3, 11, and 8. So if you were to average all those out, all you need to do is add all those numbers and then divide it by 5, and you would get an average days on market for the homes that are in contract. And this is what today's market is saying. It's
Yes.
saying that in today's market, I bet if you average this, it's probably like 5 days or something.
Perfect.
Okay. Now from Casey's question, we want to go back here and edit the search because we don't care about these contingent ones. We care about the things that have closed within the last year. 9 homes have sold, so this is good. There's going to probably be a couple comps that we can pull from. View results.
Are we using a year or 6 months?
That's the right question. The way the market
That's
is.
a great question. So I would prefer you use 90 days if there's enough evidence, and you can work backwards. Let's do that. So if I was to go 90 days to give the most recent information, I have 3. If none came up or only 1 came up, then I might go back 180 days. So let's say 6 months. I got 5. Okay, that's legit. So from here, I get a pretty good idea of the range of homes that have sold in this area. They are running from 195 all the way up to 260. And that 195 looks like an outlier. So we're really looking at 225 to 260 or so. Days on market for things that have closed in the last 6 months, 5/4/21. Notice the 21 is the one that sold for the least, so odds are that was probably a crap hole inside. So if you threw that out, you'd have 3, 8, 4, and 5. So average days on market of about 4 days. So Dawn, does that answer your question on how to find days on market for a
Yes,
specific area?
that's perfect.
So Dawn is trying to send some marketing out, and she wants to be well versed at what the market condition is for specific neighborhoods. So like Katie, you went door knocking last week. Chelsea, I know you've done some of that as well, or written your letters. Like it's good to know typical days on market, because if it's like 4, that's a wonderful piece of information to have for anyone considering selling, because they realize that it's not going to be a very long, stressful situation like they may have anticipated.
Perfect.
So Casey, to answer your question, from this, if these were the condos or something similarly sized, then I'm going to go into the pictures and compare condition and all that stuff, and then derive a price that I think that it would be a good value at.
There's also, I don't know if you guys saw, but there's Flex MLS.
You're muted. What was that?
I don't know if you guys saw, but there's an email sent out about some Flex MLS trainings coming up. There's Flex MLS 1 on September 1st and Flex MLS 2 on September 17th.
Yes, I'm glad you brought this up. So this goes hand in hand with what I sent you all an email this morning. If you guys have not opened that up yet, I spent some time trying to think and improve upon the old Passports to Success that I had when I first got licensed.
Yeah.
When I very first got my license, I was given that Passport to Success, and I used it like the Bible. I went down the list and tried to execute every single line. And what that did was, A, it got me reimbursed when I started to produce for my Hondros tuition, because in order to get reimbursed, we have to see visual, like, are they doing the work to warrant getting reimbursed. But I also went through it because it provided an awesome foundation above and beyond the coaching that I was receiving. It was something I could go pursue on my own outside of wasting my coach's time on certain things or whatever. You're not wasting my time on anything, but it's a great resource. So Flex MLS courses are amazing, and they will teach you ins and outs that maybe they've updated the course and maybe I don't even know them anymore. So I'm excited for you guys to have access to this training calendar for the upcoming month. It's going to be a stout training calendar. So attend anything that you can and try to make time for those things. But please use that Passport to Success, because I've updated it to include things of command nature. So have you input 100 contacts in a command? If not, then you're probably behind. And if you're not focusing any of your efforts on command, then you're behind. We have access to like the nicest, the best database tool in existence in the real estate industry. So if we're not going to use it, then what are you really trying to, execute here? Are you trying to grow your business? That's the question, I guess. So it's a rhetorical question. That's not aimed at any of you, because I think you all are trying to get into Command. But just continue to use it, please. I know Chelsea's trying to. She's running into an issue that she's hitting her head against the wall on, and we're trying to get her some answers on being able to email her database from Command, and it's proving to be a struggle. But when you have something that's newish like this program is, we're going to run into those problems, and it's important for us to let them know.
Did you get that, Lou?
Probably. I haven't checked my email yet.
Also, this is just real quick. Would you guys mind on that text thread for everyone to just send a text with your name so we know who is who texting?
It's a good idea.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So if everyone can just text their name in our coaching thread, that'd be great. All right, this has been some good stuff. Is there anything else that you guys, we've got 6 minutes left. I'd love for another question or two to be asked.
I have a question. I have a few leads that I think I have real potential. I've set up 4 different subscription emails, and they've all been opening them daily. I've touched base, I've followed up, but none of that, they all keep saying they're not ready for that appointment. Do you have any suggestions without being completely overbearing to try to get them to that appointment?
That's a great one. And this is really where it's going to come down to your own personal judgment of these people. So if you know anything about them at all, you're going to be able to gauge, can they handle a weekly touch base, or is this more like a monthly touch base type of person? So you really have to read the person and assess their personality type. At the worst, I would say communicate with them at least once a month, a follow-up. And at best, I would say once a week until you actually get in front of them. But normally, I mean, once they start seeing properties, they get a little antsy, and hopefully that'll expedite the process. I'm glad you've set them up on searches, because that'll be helpful. Good question. Anybody else have a question for me? Any roadblocks you're hitting? Any dead ends you're hitting?
Curious if anyone else is having the issue that I'm having with configuring emails through Smart Plans.
I'm going to bet that the answer is no, because these other guys haven't tried to set it up yet.
Yeah, that answer is 100% no. I have like 89 people in Command, but have, outside of playing with design a little bit, I have not done anything in it. If I'm being 1,000% honest, I'm kind of stuck on a few other things, and I just haven't gotten that far yet.
Keith, did you send all those emails out individually through your own email, or did you send it all through Command?
I sent them out to my own email individually this time. I wanted to verify the addresses and stuff. I will be setting them up in Command here soon, and so I'll let you know if I have any trouble.
Hey, Josh,
Katie,
the other one is that PC lead one that we learned about taking leads and then doing the text and everything else. It was really easy to simple to set up. But like I said, now it's just a matter of I've got to, as I get those, start using that. So it was really simple, and they have that saved on the Ohio Valley site stuff. So
Katie, did you you got our smart plan set up for our lead follow-up? Did you have any issues? I know we haven't. Have you actually sent any of those out yet, or put any of our contacts on that smart plan yet?
I have not, but that's because I am in the process of I need to figure out the kind of what Chelsea's talking about. I'm pretty sure it's not hard, but I need to craft messages to go in each box, especially when it comes to emails. But I haven't gotten to that part. I've got all the steps, but I haven't yet edited them to be sent out properly like that.
Okay. So Chelsea, I'm going to try to submit your question to the regional tech trainer. I don't know her, but she needs to be all over this information. And if one person is struggling with it, then I'm sure multiple are.
Well, yeah, I mean, with that one response that I got, that I can't be if it's true that it has to be 14 characters or less, I can't be the only person with an email address that's more than 14 characters. So I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll try and get some answers. Guys, I appreciate the extra effort that you all showed this week. Everyone had more contacts this week than last. So I want to celebrate that. And I want to say that 3 of our agents are going to receive a free book worth about $26. And I hope, well, Keith, you already said you had the book, don't you?
Yes, I have the book. If you send it, I will hand that off to the guy I was telling you about that I'm recruiting. So.
All right. Well, your book really will probably be in the mail because I don't intend to be back down here for another month, and I want to get it to you quicker.
Oh, come on. I expected hand delivered today.
Hey, you take me back to that barbecue place. We might be talking. I appreciate you guys and the effort, guys. We want to applaud practices that lead to business. And your practices, when you consistently every week can get 100 contacts, I promise you guys, I'm living proof the business will happen. If you decide not to get 100 contacts, you're deciding, it's your decision not to aim high enough. So I'm challenging you all to aim high enough. And next week, want 100 contacts from everyone. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Holler at me if you need anything offline.
Thank
Talk
you.
later.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.